So I tried. Xin chào các bạn. Well, unfortunately, these are the only words I know Vietnamese. Sorry very much. But you have a perfect translator, I see. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you about my favorite theme, my love, my second love, beside my wife. We're going to talk about endodontics. I think it's a very, very important issue in the future, because what I see in my everyday practice, there's a will from the patient side to save their own teeth. In Europe, in former days, there was a long time that people thought implants are the solution for everything. Now, they get started to know and get teach that their own teeth are better than any implant. So in the following hours, I try to share some of my thoughts about endodontics with you. And I really would appreciate if you could discuss some things in the breaks or before the breaks. And I will try my very best now. What's very important for me is always that we share some thoughts why we are going to do endodontics. And I think that's very important, because on the one hand, it's such a technical subject where we're talking about. We need a lot of different technical tools, equipment, and often I think the idea behind the endodontics is a bit forgotten, and that's why it's very important for me to tell you again why I'm doing endodontics every day. And I always thought over with a case. That was a patient who was referred to my clinic. She was a young patient. It was a trauma tooth once. And 2 times before, she went to another dentist who even did a retreatment. But when she came to my office, she had still pain. She had a fistula. And the question always is, what remains to be done after 2 efforts? And always ask the question if I'm lecturing in Europe. And normally I hear root resection, implants, things like that. And I always ask the colleagues why. What is your thought behind it? And really, you could do it. You could do any root resection. You can do it. Try it. Extraction is another option, and it is an option. But we tried to do a retreatment. Clearly, I'm an endodontist, so we tried it. And if you have a look, that's my post-OP picture. And it does not look so much different. I show it again from the picture before. But after 6 months, it looked like that. So something must have changed in between that time. So I always show you the first picture and the last picture again. Then you can compare it. And I always show that case is not to show how good I am in endodontics and how perfect my root fittings are, but we can learn a lot from these cases. The first, and I think the most important thing is, it's all about getting rid of bacteria and biofilm. The second thing is, don't trust X-rays. If you look at the first X-ray on the left side, it really looks almost the same than on the right side. Because what we don't see is the third dimension. We just see 2 dimensions in an X-ray, but we always treat them real teeth with 3 dimensions. So, and if you see such an infection as on the left picture, there must be something left in the root canal, and normally that are bacteria and biofilm. And that's what it's all about, and that's why I'm always showing that case as first case. So what we are doing and what we are talking about is more or less infection control. These are pictures from my clinic. Normally we get patients referred, and normally we get patients referred if there is a lot going wrong before. I do not get the easy cases, but normally we get the patient referred after multiple treatment efforts. So these are my normal cases. So that was the pre-op picture, and that's the post-op picture. I have to admit that there are around 5 to 6 months in between, because normally we have really tight appointments. But you saw something happened. What happened is not that I'm such a perfect endodontist, but that we get rid of the bacterial biofilm, and we did infection control. Other case, retreatment, same thing. In the start, big translucency, apicure, post-op, 6 months follow-up. You still see some lesion in the bone, that's normal, because it takes a long time for the bone to get full healthy again. But we did something, and it was again infection control. And that's what it's all about when we're talking about all these cases. So, you know it? What is the underlying cause necessitating endodontic treatment? Biofilm and bacteria, I told you before. So, it's well known in the scientific world, all of you know it. It's always against bacteria and biofilm, and that's important. Endodontic treatment is about upload the best possible eradication of microorganisms, infected tissue, infected dentin in the end, and as well the best possible operation of the root canal. That's what it's all about. Nothing more and nothing less. So what routes of infection are possible? Normally the bacterial progression mostly occurs or always occurs over via the dentinal tubules. And if you think about that in your tubules, it depends a bit on anatomic situation, but they have an average of diameter of approximately 1 to 4 micrometers. But on average, normal bacteria cell is smaller than 1 micrometer. That means there's a lot of space for bacteria to invade into the bone. And all of you know the roots. There's curious lesions, there are not perfect restorations, there are perhaps some untight restorations, crowns, prosthetic restorations. A lot of different ways how bacteria can invade into the root canal system or pulp system. So, just some pictures to show you bacteria in dentinal tubules. That's your daily enemy. So and if you face the enemy, it looks nearly like that, all of the bacteria cells. It's not very important to us anyway. What's a bit important, if you read into science or into literature, you always hear about gram-negative and gram-positive cells. And there is a difference, it's not just the other color. The gram-negative cells have nearly double envelopes than the gram-positive cells. So these are the enemies who are more difficult to fight against. So what we are going to talk about. On the one side we have the primary infection. We have an average from 10 to 30 species, but don't go into the figures. We know much more different bacterial species in the root canals. That's an average. What's in my eyes much more important is always a polymicrobial mix. It's a mixed infection from gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, and they are dominated by so-called obligate anaerobic bacteria. And that means these bacteria, and that's what I'm always telling my patients, don't need any oxygen. They don't need any substrate, but they will get more and more in the root canal. They don't need anything from outside. That's much more important. And that's really important in my eyes, and I'm always telling my patients, in fact, one infected root canal contains from 10 up to 8 bacterial cells. That means millions of bacteria in one root canal. And that's something really important. That's why I'm always talking with my patient about it. Because I made the experience that they come to my office and say, nah, we have a little tooth, there are just some bacteria in it, and it won't be any big problem for me. What do they do for a fuss about it? And what they have to understand, and they do if you talk with them about it, we talk about a big bacterial infection for their body. And that big bacterial infection can have a lot of serious different issues to their body. And we know it nowadays. There is a new paper in the Journal of Endodontics, how close the relation is between infected root canals and, for example, heart diseases, blood pressure, and so on. So that's much better now. Here, just a picture. You don't have to learn the picture, just to show you from how many different bacterial species we are talking in a root canal. And they differ from continent to continent. That's interesting. Here in Asia, we have different bacterial species in a root canal than in Europe, for example. But all you have to see, you have to fight a lot of enemies. That's what it's all about. What about the persistent infection? You see, it's the same thing. Primary presence of anaerobic species as well. We have as well mixed inflammation and polymicro mixed with dominant gram-positive species. And inadequately treated root canals may also contain up to 30 different bacterial species. So in my practice, we treat the persistent infection nearly the same as the primary infection. Just the first thing you have to do, you get rid of the root canal filling. And the bacterial counts in persistent infections are similar as high as in permanent infections. That's something new, relatively new. I learned in university. There's a big difference, but in fact there isn't. So, just to show you another picture as well, in persistent infections, you have to fight against a lot of enemies. And we also have to get rid of fungi. And we know in about 7 to 10% of the cases there are Candida albicans and other fungi detected in root canals. And now we come back to your daily practice. I know it's a bit boring about microorganisms, but the best way to get rid of fungi is to irrigate with EPA. So, the problem, the majority of these bacteria is able to penetrate into dentinal tuberous and up to around 300 micrometers. Angiococcus faecalis, one famous species, is able to penetrate as deep as 500 micrometers. And that is one of the reasons why we have to do a root canal preparation. On the one hand, to get mechanically rid of these bacteria. On the other side, to create space for irrigants. Because the problem is we have to get rid of the bacteria in the dentinal tuberous as well. So we need irrigants to go into this dentinal tuberous, and in the end we also need activation to push the irrigant as far as possible into this dentinal tuberous. And now comes something very, very important for me. The distribution of bacteria decreases from coronal to apical in the root canal. And if you're already bored, take this with you at home. That's very important. And here comes my slide against root canal resections. Because what we see infected root canals, and the black things are bacteria inside the root canals. And if you look at it, coronal are more bacteria, much more bacteria than apical. And that affects our daily work really fundamental, because first thing, the better you get rid of coronal bacteria, the better will be the next steps in your treatment protocol. And if you get rid of the coronal bacteria, you eradicated already a lot of bacteria, and the patient has less bacteria inside his body. And now, think about root resection. And in my clinic, in the first appointment, I always discuss with my patient about his different therapy options. And I always talk to them, as I do to you now, about bacterial root canals and so on and so on. And then I'm always asking them the same question. Well, if he cut off the apex for 2 or 3 millimeters, do the bacteria
up in the root canal know that they have to be silent now. And in the first moment they always think I'm joking because they're laughing, but I always say, no, the question is really serious. What do you think? And then the patient says, naturally they don't know. So, and that's why in the first hand, root canal resections don't make any sense. It's a therapy option if you did every other therapy option. So, these are bacteria in dentinal tubules. Just to show you pictures. How do they occur, the bacteria? That's important again for your daily work. There are two forms actually. One is the planktonic form. That's no problem because that means they swim in tissue fluid. That means you can wash them out with everything. Beer, water, wine, whatever. Our real problem every day, your problem will be the thing tomorrow, your office is the biofilm, the so-called biofilm. These are planktonic bacteria, not our problem. But these planktonic bacteria can change into biofilm. What's biofilm? Biofilm is a conglomerate of a lot of different bacteria, and these bacteria are able to produce extracellular matrix. It's a glue, no more and no less than a glue. And inside this glue, a lot of different bacteria make a sort of symbiosis. And that has a really big influence on our daily work, because we have to get rid of that biofilm. That's the most important part of your daily work in endodontics, getting rid of the biofilm. And why is it so important? It's so important because microorganisms in biofilm are much more difficult to eradicate, and these bacteria in the biofilm, they change, and microorganisms embedded in a biofilm are up to 1,000 times more resistant against every antimicrobial therapy than they would be as an isolated species. One species alone, and you take sodium hypochlorite, it will be dead. Make the same thing in a biofilm and you put sodium hypochlorite on it, and nearly nothing will happen. So here's some wonderful histological pictures where you see how tight the biofilm is, how heavy it is to get rid of all these, you can imagine. And that biofilm can be up to 300 cell layer thick. And if you look at these electron microscopic pictures, you can imagine a lot of different bacterial species embedded in the glue. And microbiological studies in medicine, not only in dental medicine but in medicine as well, suggest that biofilm-induced infections are responsible for at least 65 to 80% of all human diseases in the industrialized world. That means if you talk about biofilm, we talk about heart diseases as well, we talk about blood pressure, we talk about strokes, we talk about a lot of different medical issues. So, one more thing, the primary cause of post-treatment epiglottitis is acknowledged to be continuing presence of bacteria within the root canal system. We talk about biofilm. And if you look into pathological investigations, in post-treatment diseases, nearly 3/4 of all diseases were related to biofilm. So, see how important it is that we get rid of that biofilm. So now, congratulations to all of you, you managed microbiology. We're now talking about more about practical endodontics, but that's very important. So, and now come, I think, the best pictures I ever saw in endodontic books. And I always talk to my patient about that graph. And it's quite simple. We have here the time. On the y-axis we have the number of bacteria in one root canal. And we have a certain threshold here. And that's now our daily work. So, there are always bacteria in root canals, but these bacteria counts have to reach a quorum of cells first. quantity of cells to cause a disease. And before that threshold, patients normally don't have any pain or symptoms, and you don't see anything in X-rays. So, if the quantity is over that threshold, apical periodontitis is established. And there is the possibility that the patients have pain, but there is also the possibility that they don't have any pain. And I don't know why it is the way it is, because I always think if you have an apical periodontitis, there should be pain. But we don't know why there are patients, and I think all of you experience patients who come to you with, you do an X-ray like that, and they don't have any pain before. And I would be very thankful if anyone in the room has an explanation for it, because that makes me crazy that there are patients occurring without any pain. You have to tell them, well, we have to do an endodontic treatment now, and they say, why? I have no pain, nothing. Are you crazy? So I think it's very important that we get an explanation one day for that issue. Anyway, at that point we have to do an endodontic treatment. And there are two possibilities now. Possibility one, our treatment fails in quotation marks. That means if we are not able to reduce bacteria under that threshold, and there are multiple reasons for it. It can be hidden canal systems, it can be lack of preparation or irrigation, it can be that we don't see an isthmus in between two canals where there's enough tissue, but in the end there's still too much bacteria in the root canal system. These are the teeth which are so difficult because the patient comes back with pain and pain. You see always some translucency in X-rays and so on and so on. But I have much better news for us. That's the second option. Our successful treatment does not mean that we get sterile canals. And please don't ever tell a patient that we get sterile canals, because then you're under pressure. I always tell my patients we get as much bacterial reduction as possible, but we never get sterile canals, because in the moment you talk about sterile canals, the patient goes home, he goes into the internet, he will Google, and one day he will come back and say, doctor, you said we have sterile canals, but I have pain again. How? And all that then leads to an antimicrobial endodontics, and that's very important, that you get your own antimicrobial concept in endodontics. And that's very important for me. We all know that bacteria are the main cause for our daily treatments, and I always talk about scientifically based endodontics. That means everything I tell you should be scientifically based, as well as everything I treat with my patient. And this slide is just a summary of what I said to you now for 30 minutes. So, what's more important for our patient is, and it's important for us as well, what do we tell the patient about his outcome, about his chance to save his teeth? And I think that's very important, especially if you charge money for our treatment. It gets more important because the patient always wants to know, what are my chances to save the tooth? And there are some good studies, some new studies. I always try to show you some new studies about outcomes, because normally the possibility that the newer studies are done with more modern equipment are much higher. And that study, in the first glance, it looks strange because there the endodontic outcome is compared between endodontic specialists and GPs. And now you would think, oh yeah, he wants to show us how good he is as endodontic specialist and how bad we are as GPs. But it will be the other way around. Because if you look into the results, the survival rate of all the teeth collectively were 98% after 1 year. That means all of you normally a very, very good job. It looked a bit different after 10 years with 86%, but come on, 86%, would you do it? I would do it anytime. So the conclusion out of it was that the survival rate was very high even after 10 years, but there was a significant difference in molars, treated molars between specialists and between GTs, but that's quite normal, because that are the most difficult things normally. Another study, new study, stop, it's too quick, water, wait. Non-surgical root canal treatment, as I love it, in first models, and use of contemporary new modern techniques. The conclusion out of this study was, it was a retreatment study using contemporary techniques. We had a success rate of 90% after 2 years. That's impressive. That's very, very high. That's something you can tell the patient, we have a really good chance. It's not just a chance, but it's a really good chance. So, the question is, how can we reach these numbers and these goals? Well, I have to tell you, you need a bit of equipment. Don't get afraid now. I just show you what I need for equipment to reach these goals. That does not mean that everyone needs that equipment. But what I want to show you is, you need equipment, and it's not possible to do modern endodontics without good equipment. And all these things are pictures from my office, and I need all of these devices for nearly every of my treatment. And that's what I want to show you. You have to learn, and the patients, especially the patients, have to learn that when they are provided with modern endodontic treatments, they have to pay for it, because you need a lot of equipment to provide the patient with modern endodontic treatment. No worry, you don't need all of this equipment. It's for crazy people like me, but at least you need some equipment.
Đừng có lo ngại, bởi vì không cần tất cả cái dụng cụ này đâu. Các anh chị chỉ cần một phần mà thôi, cũng có thể điều trị tốt được rồi.
And what's all about is endodontic infection control. And that's a good case from my office. It was a young patient, a boy, around 12 years old. And if you look at it closer, the orthodontic treatment was really optimistic. And there are not many options with 12 years you have. Anyway, there are exactly 2 treatment options. Extraction. And I promise you the boy won't be very happy about that. Especially if he wants to, if it's going to get into the goals. He does not look very nice. The next option is really trying to do best possible infection control. That is the post-op of all these 4 Ts. And that's how it looked at 6 months later. And we have a follow-up after 2 years, and it looks the same. And what I want to show you, if you help your body by eradication of biofilm and bacteria, a lot of these problems will get better or totally resolve. So, done with microbiology. But always have in mind what it's all about. Are there any questions we should discuss now after that? Was it too boring?
Nếu các anh chị không hỏi thì nó sẽ rất là nhàm chán á.
Okay. Anyway, I will be there in every break, and everyone can come to me and talk to me personally, and I will answer every question, but I have to say I don't know everything. So, next thing what we have to talk about, the right access to everything, to the root canal system. And first of all, I will highlight it will be very, very important that you take Ramadan. I know it's a difficult issue. I'm doing lectures now, I think, for 15 years, and I always had to discuss about Ramadan with everyone. But if you think on the microbiological aspect I told you before, it's just quite simple. As we want to get rid of bacteria, we have to get rid of the bacteria from the mouth, from the saliva, from everything. And it's much easier done with rubber dams than with anything else. And one funny and very interesting experience from me personally, your patients will like the rubber dam much more than you expect. because they don't have any cotton rolls in their mouths, they don't have any water in their mouths, they don't have any irrigants in their mouths. So I have a lot of patients, and I'm always talking about Ramadan before the first treatment, but because what I would suggest to you, always explain what you're doing now. Imagine you don't know anything about Ramadan and someone comes and puts you that rubber into the mouth. You will be thrilled. And it's quite funny because if I talk about it, a lot of them have a smile on their face and say, oh, now I know why I'm a specialist, because you have always And additionally, that depends always on the diameter. There's much more room for debris removal in the root canal. And if you look at it all in all, you have a soft front edge which really prevents pushing debris into the apical region, which is very important. But it's even the other way around, it really effectively transports debris out of the root canal. These are some money pictures about flexibility. That means if you look at it, they are more flexible than normal K5s, which in different cases with highly curved canals, and they are available, and that's very good, in a lot of different sizes. But often you have the problem that the files are just available until ISO 40, 45, 50, and here you have the biggest file is 80, and in fronties, for example, that's a big advantage. So, when we talk about preparation, we already talked about mechanical preparation. We have to talk about rotary preparation now. And I think the manual preparation will always play an important role just to get enough space for a rotary file to work. But in my opinion, the rotary preparation of root canals, it's a lot of advantages. And I never want to tell you it's just my opinion. I hate lectures who say in my opinion or I think. I always, as I told you, try that it's scientifically based, and there is scientific basis for it. One thing is that it's significantly faster than with hand instrumentation to prepare root canal, even in bigger sizes, rotary or in reciprocal motion. On the other hand, the quality of root canal treatment was increased in every case. That means we had not so much faults with our root canal preparation with rotary files, with any rotary file, than with hand files. Here is another paper about the same thing, relatively new root canal shaping with manual stainless steel files and rotary LiPAC files performed by students. And if you have a closer look at it, they did hand preparation with FlexiCut stainless steel files from BDW. You can read it, rotary preparation with FlexMaster LiPAC files. And what they did, they measured the canal aberrations. And the nice thing in this paper was that there were nice pictures about the mistakes you can do with manual preparation. One mistake, that's a common mistake, I did it very often, that's it, in your preparation. Then you lose that you leave the original root canal shape. The other one is an elbow, so-called elbow. It happens because the flexibility here in that area isn't high enough from stainless steel, so you widen the canal in that area. And the third one is the ledge, and perhaps one of you knows it. It's if you have a perforation in the root canal, or if you can't get any further down, advance its root canal because you prepared the canal on the wrong length. Examine these three parameters in the root canals and look at that. With manual preparation, 50%, 65%, elbows and tips, rotary 9.5, 17.1, much less mistakes in preparation, enlarging the root canal than with manual steel files. The other thing was the transportation of the root canal. That means maintaining the original curvature of the root canal. With hand preparation, 80%, nearly every case. With rotary preparation, 23% of the cases. And we have to know that studies from 2003, and I think with the new generation of rotaries, it's even much better than the number. And when you look at the overall results, you see the rotaries were much more superior. That's one of my cases. When you see ledges here, you don't see them, but they are there because the root canals were treated on the wrong working lengths. I guess the dentist couldn't advance any further. And to regain the whole length of the root canal in these cases, without perforation, without everything, is not very simple. And And it always looks so. It looks as it's an easy case because you know you did the sinners. You just simply have to get further down, and getting further down is often really complicated due to these ledges. And last study, a relatively new one, they compared 6 rotary nine-tile systems and hand instrumentation for root canal preparation, and under the conditions of this study, the ex vivo study, nine-tile systems maintained the canal curvature associated with fewer instrument fractures and were more rapid than a standardized manual technique. I just want to show you there are a lot of advantages of thinking about preparing root canals to bigger sizes with nine-tile rotary instruments. The advantages are that you do less mistakes and that it's faster. On the other hand, it costs more money, but I think in the end it will pay out because it's much faster and much more safe. What I don't want, I have to mention it, we always talk about rotary preparation, there is always a reciprocal preparation that is at the normal coming to the bottom line, it's a rotary preparation, but there you always have two directions, the file cuts and the file releases, and the file cuts and the file releases. Former days I thought that is the very best movement, but I changed my mind a bit because why was it invented? And in the end, it was invented because there were some file fractures with full rotary instruments. But what happened, they developed or are developing in the moment a lot of better alloys, and I promise you it will be so safe with rotary movement that I don't think that we need the reciprocal movement anymore in the future. And there is the bottom line, the summary of that part. Manual preparation, I think, is still absolutely independent for the first enlargement. With the development of the more flexible alloys, we just talked about that, the need for reciprocation movement is decreasing. It's still a good movement, but it exists high scientific evidence for the fact that rotary preparation is superior to hand preparation of root canals. And now I'll show you a file system which I know is not very popular, but which I really use on a regular basis because I think and I know that it's a really good file system, just different. As a lot of things with money, it's just different. And yesterday I talked with Mr. Hahn about the file system, and he said, yeah, it's not very popular, and I asked him, what are the complaints from the dentists? And he explained me, yeah, there is not so much cutting ability, and I said, yeah, that's true. He said, you can't advance very quickly in the root canal, and I said, yes, that's true. But I think simply you have to understand the system. So, look at that. The cross-section is totally different. That's where it all starts. It's a teardrop cross-section.
Thì về đầu tiên là cái thiết diện cắt ngang. Ở thiết diện cắt ngang này thì nó có hình giọt nước.
And the cutting ability is less than with some other file system. That's true. But it has a sharp cutting edge, one sharp cutting edge. And due to the cross-section, the diameter is very small, and in the decisive parts of the root canal, apical, it's very flexible. And if you look into the longitudinal section, it's different as well, because there are only some cutting edges, and there are so-called radial ends, electropolished surfaces. And due to these long radial ends, the file remains very, very well centered in the root canal, and remains the root canal system very well, because it slides down the root canal like a train on. But due to that design, the cutting ability is decreased a bit, That's true. And therefore you can't push that file into the root canal. On the other hand, it's a really minimal invasive preparation of the root canal system. And that's what we want to achieve with modern endodontics. And look at these radial ends. It's like a glide path down the root canal. And I think that's one very big advantage of the file system. Here, just once again, the diameter, and it looks quite funny, but I think it's a very, very well thought over diameter. Another, I think, advantage of the file system is the tip. It's very round, but in narrow canals it gets a disadvantage, because due to that very round tip, the file that one's very good, because the tip is not cutting and the cutting edges start far behind. The file is heat treated, that makes it much more flexible in the apical 10 millimeters of the file. And I think that's a clever idea again, because that's where the curvatures normally are. But that short working part minimizes the torque of the file and on the tooth, because you only have a very, very short working part. And as often with money, things are very complicated and we simplify them, because just think about taking the 04 taper files. The other files are not so nice, I think, but the 04 taper files are very good. And that's what we talked yesterday, because they are flexible enough and they're minimally invasive. So, stick to the 04% taper files, but I think it's very good. It starts with ISO 20 files, and you have the option till ISO 40, and that covers a wide range of different canal sizes. And these files fit for nearly every obturation technique. How to use them? That's nice. All files are used with the same speed. If you know other file systems, you always have to secure you have the right setting, the right torque, the right rounds per minute. They all function with the same speed, 500 rounds per minute at 3.0 Newton centimeters torque. And they are clockwise rotation. They can be operated in reciprocal motion, but I don't see much sense behind it. So, just try the complex case system. That's 04% taper. That's a yet unpublished study. It will be published in the JOE very soon. Now it's already done, and it was just published in one of our EGET papers. And it was a comparison of the preservation of S-cuff root canals with different night-type file systems. I show you in a second in rotary and reciprocal motion. So they took 100 artificial root canals, and it were compared F6 Sky taper files, very famous at the moment in Europe, reciprocal blue files, very, 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 very famous in Europe and the world, and Mani silk files in 2004 and 2504 taper, and the same thing in 06% taper. And actually, I wanted that study to be done because I really wanted to know about the silk files. I was the head behind the study. I pushed the university to do that study because I wanted to know how good or bad the silk files are. So, results. Mani silk files with 04% taper preserves the original canal curvature significantly better compared to F6 Sky taper files in the apical part. In the coronal part, where we want to preserve as much dentinal structure as possible, the Mani silk files preserve the original canal curvature significantly better than all other testing systems. And the preparation time with the Mani silk files was as two file system was faster compared to the tested one file systems. And the conclusion out of that was instruments with one cutting edge Mani silk and radial ends permit a more form congruent and faster preparation of root canals with multiple curvatures. And there was no Mani sponsored study. There was a really independent study at the University of Münster in Germany, And University of Münster in Germany is really famous in the whole world for their knowledge about files, about different file systems. And I think they investigate nearly every file system which is available in the world. Here are some pictures. That's a Mani Silk file system with all 4% taper. And if you compare it, for example, that's reciprocal blue. The dark part is the original canal curvature, and that's, if you look at reciprocal blue and Mani Silk file, it's a big difference in the preservation of the original root canal. If you compare it as well, F6 file taper, Riciflow, this Mani Silk file really looks nice, and I think that's due to the different design. And that show how first curvature, second curvature, how far it's going away, the file system from the original canal curvature, and the black one is the Mani Silk file. You see, it really stays the best, especially in the second curvature in the original root canal. Unfortunately, there are not very much studies about it, but there are some. Even Mani was astonished when I showed the studies to them. That's a study from an Indian group. The evaluation of centering ratio associated with hand pro taper, silk rotary files, in continuous rotary motion and reciprocal motion. And what you see again, and that's nearly the same result than in the University of Münster study, the centering ability of the silk files was really good. Same thing, mean canal transportation, really good scores for the Mani Silk files. The conclusion in the study was that it was found that silk by Mani used in reciprocation motion has better sending ability and less transportation than all other systems. So, and they recommended to use the silk files as an alternative to other systems having advantages in terms of less canal transportation and better centering ability, even in rotary motion. The last study about debris extrusion, and that debris extrusion was compared with one-shade pro taper next and Mani Silk, and the result was that the Mani Silk system extruded significantly less debris than the other systems. That means, especially in the debris part, it's very good as well. So, my recommendations. First of all, there are a lot of different good file systems around. That's no doubt about that. But Mani Silk is not a bad file system. I think it has advantages. Another advantage is if you look at the price. Pricing is totally different from the other systems. But it has some shortcomings and it has some advantages. And there are some recommendations for the clinical use I give you. First one, and I think that's the most important, again, straight access. Second, you have to create the glide passes in ISO 20. That's important. Third, just use the silk files with 04 taper. And don't press or push the file into the canal. And if the file does not advance, take a smaller diameter, again, for creating room for the next bigger file. Some short clips how the file works or not works, and perhaps you saw before they are available in 08 taper as well. And there was a question from the colleague there about the pre-flaring with Gates Glidden. And instead of the Gates Glidden, the only good thing about 08 taper Mani Silk files, you can do the pre-flaring with them. Through the big taper, you get a good pre-flaring. But that are the small 04 silk files, and look at that how good the camel is, the file is centered in the camel. That's a difficult camel. Next one. But the file has to have enough room for working. That's in one of my clinical cases, and I use them on a regularly basis. Not as only file system, but as additional system. That's 2504 now. And you see it's not very difficult to advance it. These are some cases done with silk files. That's an interesting case. It was lower premolar. I was referred to my clinic because the patient had persistent pain after multiple treatments. And we looked at the tooth, and that's not so seldom in Europe. It had 2 canals in the lower premolar. And we found the second canal, and the patient was pain-free from that moment. And that was done with a silk file as well, I think. And look at that anastomosis, it was possible to fit it as well, because, and that's our next subject, I think we irrigated very well and we had a good tumor. I mentioned a lot of retreatment cases, and it's a totally different object, but because we are talking about silk files and money, one very small part, which I use on a regular basis for removing the aperture very quick in the corner parts of these money GPR removers. And you should try them because I showed so many retreatment cases, and what I do with them, I use them very quick, 1000 grams per minute. I just use normally the ISO 40 or ISO 35, and they are made from nighttime. And what do? I remove the cord and middle part of the root canals of the root filling till the apical 3 millimeters, I say. And that's how it works. And for me, that's a fantastic tool to be very, very quick to the apical part. It really gets out the gut aperture very, very quick. Look at that. And now it's done beyond the apical 3 millimeters. There we have to get more careful. That's done in less than 10 seconds. Just one study, it was published in the JOE, one short study about the system. It's nearly the same from the diameter than the money silk file. Here are the results. And money GPR was significantly faster in removing filling material, and that's really a big advantage, and I don't want to miss that. And that's a retreatment case which was done with money, GPR removers and silk files, I guess, with a severe ledge. Another case, retreatment case with silk files as well. 2 teeth, one with a post, one without the post. So first it looks awful, then you remove the good gut aperture. What we found is a second mesobuccal canal system, MB2. So, and there are the pictures before and after operation, and these are the x-rays. Another case, just to show you I'm doing a lot of retreatments. Actually, I'm doing about 80% of my time retreatment. Last one, that's done with silk files. It was a fractured instrument first. We removed it via ultrasound as well, and it was difficult to remove. And these canals were severely curved, but I think I just want to show you, I use it on a regular basis and it's alright. So now we are done with mechanical preparation. Now I show you a wonderful picture. That's where you have to work tomorrow morning again. And that's no special picture. There are hundreds and thousands. That is our task. That's really, really difficult. And that's a really human extracted tooth. And it's a friend of mine from Germany, and he managed to make the hard tooth structure visible, and he made visible the pulse. And I show these pictures always in my first appointment to the patients to explain to them how complicated the thing which we are doing is really in the real world. Unfortunately, tomorrow morning you will have the same problem again. There's the question, how can we clean these complex root canal systems? And we all know we have 2 possibilities, and we need both of them like a good team. We need, on the one hand, the shaping with hand files and rotary files, which we talked about. On the other hand, we have the disinfection with irrigation solutions and the possible activation of these solutions. The question introduction, we had already mechanical preparation, hand files, rotary files, reciproc, whatever. One bad point or one bad news for today is there is a very, very famous study from Ove Peters from San Francisco, and he showed that with any mechanical preparation, hand files, rotaries, whatever, 38 to 53% of the main root canal walls were not even touched from the files. It is a really old study. So I show you a new study from 2017, the same setup nearly, with oval-shaped canals, difficult to prepare root canals. And the result was we still, with the most modern, most sophisticated file systems like reciproc, like true shape, we had about 25 to 20% untouched areas. And if you look at the pictures, red is the original shape of the root canal before preparation, and green, and red after preparation. And there are many, many, many different areas where a file never touched. How do we do it? Disinfection with irrigation solutions and their activation is very, very, very crucial and important, and we should talk about that.
Như vậy thì chúng ta sẽ làm như thế nào để có thể làm sạch toàn bộ các hệ thống thủy phức tạp này?
Irrigation and activation, and I show you something just these are really old case effect. And it's not to show you how good the endodontics is again, but all of them have different anatomic features. And for example, in the middle, the big lateral canal, I didn't know it even that there is a lateral canal before I obturated the tooth. But it looks like we did something alright because we disinfected very much, and perhaps a bit is a thermoplasticized obturation material. But in the end, it's all about disinfection. So what do we have to know about irrigation solutions? I think you know the most of it. First of all, they have, on the one hand, a chemical action. On the other hand, activation is very important. So we should talk about two things. So let's come to the chemical action. That's the gold standard for the moment. Still, it is. It's sodium hypochlorite and it's EDTA. We need both of them. Sodium hypochlorite is really old. It was first described in dental medicine in 1920. Nothing really new, but it has some really, really important properties. It has a very, very, very good antibacterial efficiency. And on the other hand, it has a very good tissue dissolution activity. And we come to the beginning of the last lecture. If you think about microbiology, about biofilm, what do we need in endodontics? We need to reduce the biofilm, and we have to get rid of infected tissue. And sodium hypochlorite does both these things. It has an outstanding antibacterial activity against the majority of endodontically relevant microorganisms. To be honest, I don't know about anything which does not where sodium hypochlorite does not has antibacterial activity against. How can you influence the factors on effectiveness? There are 4 points. You can influence it about with concentration, with temperature, with volume, and with activation. So the properties are disinfecting activity and tissue dissolution ability. And with regard to tissue dissolution capacity, sodium hypochlorite is superior to everything else at a concentration as low as 1%. The concentration, in higher concentration, sodium hypochlorite dissolves necrotic tissue faster than in lower concentration. That means if you take higher concentrations, all these properties will get faster. But in the literature, I think 6% sodium hypochlorite is the maximum. And we take 5% sodium hypochlorite in our clinic. If you want to use lower concentrations, you have to have in mind that it will take longer time for the same effects. And sodium hypochlorite is the only known endodontic irrigant to date capable of addressing the problems associated with endodontic biofilm. And if you think about today in the morning, that's very important. Volume, a lot. Raising the sodium hypochlorite volume improves microbiome reduction. That means you can't irrigate enough with sodium hypochlorite. And a higher turnover, that means frequent irritant renewal, is equally essential. And you need at least for the whole treatment, not for the whole treatment from beginning to end, 10 milliliters of sodium hypochlorite. Exposure time, sodium hypochlorite should be in the root canal for at least 30 minutes, it's better 60 minutes. That means we start flushing the sodium hypochlorite just at the beginning of our treatments, and we flush again all the time, despite the times where I have to see what I'm doing. For example, if I use excess cavity. Temperature. The most effective action in temperatures between 45 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. What does it mean? If you raise the temperature by 25 degrees, you increase the efficiency of sodium hypochlorite by 100%. And that's why we always warm up the sodium hypochlorite directly before the treatment. It can be done very easily. You buy a baby bottle warmer if you don't have one, and you put the syringes with sodium hypochlorite into the baby bottle warmer, and you get 25% decreased temperature. That's it for sodium hypochlorite. Now to EDTA. What is EDTA? Well, what does it do? It removes the smear layer, something very important. We talk about the smear layer in 1 second, but it also does, which is a disadvantage, it softens root canal dentin. So you have to know how you deal with EDTA. What's confirmed is antifungal efficiency against Candida albicans. So we need it to get rid of the fungi in the root canal. What about the smear layer? What is it? And debris. If you use an instrument in the root canal, it will cut off dentin. And that dentin will mix with biofilm, with bacteria, with old tissue, and all these things together are called smear layer. If you do rotary preparation, it's even bigger the problem, because due to that rotary movement, the smear layer is really pressed into the dentinal tubulus and lateral canals. And these filaments strongly impede the disinfection. And therefore the removal of the smear layer and debris is very crucial for disinfection with sodium hypochlorite. And that's why we need EDTA. Concentration is 50 to 17%, and there's no significant antimicrobial dissolution property. And when we use the EDTA, we always use EDTA if I want to have a better activation and better dissolution capability of the sodium hypochlorite afterward. So that means first I do the debris removal and removal of the smear layer, and then I rinse again with sodium hypochlorite. And the smear layer is completely removed by irrigation with 17% EDTA. And what you should not do is keeping the EDTA for a long time in the root canal, because that leads to significant erosion and reduction in dentin and microhormones. EDTA is able to destabilize biofilm on root canal surfaces, and then if you work with sodium hypochlorite again, it has beneficial effects. So I would suggest to you now a possible irrigation protocol as I use it in my clinic, and you can photograph it in the end or not. So, during root canal preparation, we always irrigate with sodium hypochlorite. Before I place the medication, I first take EDTA to get rid of the smear layer, and then sodium hypochlorite. Take it before obturation. We use first EDTA, to get rid of the smear layer, the debris, and then sodium hypochlorite again, because now we want to clean as good as possible. And to prevent leaks, we always, in between, we always irrigate with sterile water. Okay. Another possibility, instead of EDTA, which is popular in Germany, is citric acid. You can take that one as well. It's also recommended for smear layer removal concentrations. Different concentrations have been investigated. And citric acid, so 10% solution has been described to be as effectively as EDTA for smear layer removal.
Thì một số các nghiên cứu đã khẳng định được cái khả năng lấy đi cái lớp mùn nè bằng axit citric 10%.
The only difference, and that's why I don't use citric acid, there has not been any scientific research about antifungal capacity of citric acid. Okay, are you still alive? Is it okay?
Em chị còn đang tỉnh táo không ạ?
Okay, good. Very good. So, again a wonderful picture, this time from an upper molar. Unfortunately, tomorrow morning again, in your office. And the question is the irrigation alone sufficient for cleaning these complicated systems? And I mean, in the end they are complicated, but they are just normal for the humans. There are some studies. One study from 2009, sonic and ultrasonic activation resulted in a better irrigation of the lateral canal systems. And the conclusion was that traditional needle irrigation alone demonstrated significantly less penetration of irrigant into lateral canals and was limited due to the level of the penetration of the needle. And now we are again back in the morning. And I told you in the morning that bacteria and biofilm also penetrated to the dentinal tuberous and lateral canals. And have a look at that study. That's fantastic, a fantastic study. These are MB and ML canals from molars from the underjaw. Right. It gets more complicated. There's more tissue, more isthmus in between. And the areas are the instrumented areas. They were instrumented by reciprocal instruments and irrigated. You look to the right side of the picture. How much tissue is there left? How much bacteria will be in that tissue? How much biofilm? Very, very complicated to remove, and that's the reason why we not always succeed in what we are doing. So, is irrigation alone sufficient? It isn't. So, the activation of irrigation solution is decisive, and I know that's a bit complicated and cost-effective, but in the end you should look for at least some activation method to get better results in your treatment every day. If you look at that, there are a lot of different activation methods available, and some were tried, some were left again, but there are a lot of different stuff available. Nowadays, I think there are 3 methods which should be, we have a closer look: sonic activation, ultrasonic activation, and laser activated irrigation. What means activation? Activation means you want to bring movement and pressure into the irrigation solution. And it's some sort of activation means to press the solution as far as possible into the dentinal tuberous. For a long time, the ultrasonic irrigation was our gold standard, and I did it for at least 10 years, even longer, I think. And I thought we did the best we can do. And it's very cost effective till now, and I always can recommend you to do it, because you can take, for example, these MAN-EU files, and with them you can activate your irrigation solution. And it's better than nothing, much better. There are several options. You can take Action files, you can take the EU files, some ultrasonic file for activating the root canal solution. And passive ultrasonic irrigation, that's, if you read into the science, PUI I means passive ultrasonic irrigation contributes to the removal of biofilm. POE, passive ultrasonic irrigation increases the cleaning effectiveness of irrigation solutions in complex root canal anatomies. They are recommended to you absolutely, because it's something very easy done and it's cost effective. But it has its shortcomings, as always, unfortunately. For example, if you use a low concentration of sodium hypochlorite, there were studies that it did not show any higher efficiency in severe layer removal with conventional irrigation, so you have to use higher concentrations. And that's a very new study, that's nothing old. Another new study from the ACTA group in Amsterdam is about the uncontrolled removal of the in-urine ultrasonic irrigation in curved canals. And that's something important. And what were the results? There were always dentin defects after using the ultrasonic files in the root canal. So there was the possibility to create ledges, to create perforations, and that's something we don't want after our preparation. If you are done with the preparation, you think it's everything fine, and you want to activate, and you get ledges. So that's something you have to have in mind by using ultrasonic irrigation. But it's very, very well examined, and the science is always good, so I can recommend it, but you have to know about these disadvantages. Newer device is the so-called ANI. I don't know whether you know it here, but I think it's in Asia as well. That's a solid activation system. And it works nearly the same way than the anti-activator, but there is a big difference. The anti-activator works with 170 Hz. The anti-system works with 4000 Hz. The big advantage is it's made from plastic. So you are not able to create any ledges or any perforation with it. And it's very flexible, so it follows every root canal curvature. Unfortunately, there are not many studies available. And that's something where I always criticize the industry. I criticize the industry. I do. I say that's not right to them. You don't know, you know it. Because they develop something and they throw it into the market, and we, the dentists, shall look whether it's good or not. The same thing occurred with ZE. There was no study, nothing. And they pushed it into the market, and they said, that's fantastic, without any study. And I would like to do it the other way around. For the ANI, for example, there are only 3 studies worldwide available. We did one of it. And that's what we found out, that you can ANI compare to passive ultrasonic irrigation in the means of effectiveness. And now comes something very, very new, where I also do science about. Something very, very sophisticated. I think it could be the possibility to put it very, very low, that the future of irrigation. Don't know whether you hear from it, it's so-called laser-activated irrigation. And that's something absolutely new. What is LAI, laser-activated irrigation? In fact, in some simple words, the energy from laser energy is absorbed by the irrigation solution. Due to the laser energy and the heat in the solution, vapor bubbles form, expand, and implode. This procedure induces pressure waves and strong shear stress along the whole root canal systems. And therefore the irrigation fluid is activated and actively transported to irregular root canal spaces. And for us as dentists, it's something totally strange, because it's a new way of treating teeth, because you don't actually have any contact with the tooth itself. What is it? There are 2 possibilities of doing it. In conventional laser-activated irrigation, the laser tip is placed inside the root canal system. The second one is the so-called PIP system, and it's in the end nothing else than laser-activated irrigation. But there is one big difference. The PIP tip, and I will show you in a second, inserted just in the pulp cavity. So, if you have a look, that's a normal irrigation cannula. That's a laser optic, a laser tip placed in the root canal system. We could talk about that for hours. And that's the correct position of the PIP tip. And that means what you have to imagine now, everything here is full of irrigation fluid. And the laser tip will activate the irrigation fluid throughout the whole canal system. Now I show you some pictures or films that you can learn how it works. That's a laser tip, and look what's happening to the fluid. Do we have sound again? Look what's happening inside. I think we should do it once again. Everyone sees it. So, another film. That was a study, but it was done really early in that stage by Ove Peters again, and it was an in vivo, in vitro study. And what they concluded is a combination of PIPs and sodium hypochlorite and EDTA, these things what I mentioned before, resulted in the almost complete elimination of bacteria and spirillea as well as biofilm. And that's what we want to achieve. The better the eradication, the more success we will have. Now some short films, and I think that you always have to see what I'm talking about, and I wanted to see it myself. We were the first clinic in Germany to use the laser, I think one of the first clinics actually worldwide.
Và đây là cái phim mà các anh chị xem, tôi cũng xem lại để xem người ta sử dụng cái tip ở trong cái hỏa hóa bình quân thử như thế nào.
And what we did, we prepared plastic root canals till ISO 40, and then we filled the root canals with sterile water, which was dyed with carbox detector. And then we simply filmed what's happening, and you have to imagine the tip of the PIP's tip ends up here. And now look what's happening. Sound?
Âm thanh ạ.
Do you think the bubbles in all four canal systems? So we did some other films, because what I was very interested in, what's happening with these lateral canal systems, and there is only one sort of teeth, they are called Buchanan teeth, where we have artificial lateral canal systems, because these bubbles implode. And in the implosion you create a lot of shear stress, and it's more or less disinfection. It's complicated, I can explain it to you afterwards.
Are you sure that it implodes?
I'm absolutely sure. So, and what we did now in that films, we took every device we have for activation in our clinic, and then we compared it. And what you have to look at is that part here, whether there is any activity or not. And it would be good if you have sound again. So that's the eddy first. That's the eddy inside the root canal, which I showed to you before. That was the eddy. Now we do ultrasonic activation. There is happening something, but not very much. And now we're doing this laser activated irrigation. The tip is up here. Wow. Sound? Look at that. Here. And look how the color is going out of the root canal. We talk about that later, no problem. translate, please, how the color is going out of the root canal. I'll show you the film again, and you have a look about the color, and that means that there is a lot of sodium hypochlorite in the root canal, and it irrigates.